Well, we're going to induce this episode of the Bible Recap Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Josh. I'm here with Tyler and Don, and we are in week 44 of the podcast here. And, of course, again, what I'm going to share with you is in the description box, but just so you know, and again, I'm going to try to share it in biblical order, as week 44 here, we are in Matthew chapter 19 to 22. We are in Mark chapters 10 to 12, Luke chapters 18 to 19, and then John chapters 11 to 12. So, again, welcome back. So glad to see you guys, and I believe I'm supposed to kick off the questions this week.
Yes.
All right, number one. According to the Gospel of John, chapter 11, verse 54, raising Lazarus from the dead is a turning point for Jesus. How do the location and audience contribute to this turning point? What is he being mindful of by making this adjustment?
Well, I think I read into this a little bit too far, but I had to Google because I wasn't following. But first off, I think Lazarus is foreshadowing him on the cross, which I don't really think that was in the question, but I felt like I had to get that out there. But we also have to look at, like, later when you actually read some of these, it's talking about he's going to the outskirts, because what I think it is because the Jewish leaders are trying to kill him, trying to get rid of him. So he's trying to kind of move himself away from that because he knows his time's not ready. So that's what I have. I know that's not the answers, but
and I would just add to that. I mean, I think the way it was set up too was he was mindful of his audience just by letting him pass, so then he could glorify God in bringing Lazarus back. But
yeah. I mean, I think you guys both touch on what's going on here, because I mean, it is a flashing light that because if we remember from earlier in the Gospels, after they're in Caesarea Philippi, it's after that time Jesus starts talking about his crucifixion and resurrection. And as human beings, we do have a tendency, we want, we need to see it to believe it type of thing. And so if you think about like the 2-minute long movie trailer that just gets you so excited, in a sense, that's what Jesus does here with Lazarus about the resurrection. It's like, blink, blink, blink. Pay attention to what this is. And this is one of the I am sayings of Jesus. I am the resurrection and I am the life. And so as he's talking about him dying but also rising, the raising of Lazarus is then that movie trailer, that teaser of what's going to happen to all of God's people. It's like, this is something that's going to, this is temporary for Lazarus because he's going to experience the full resurrection later, but this is another verification of Jesus is who he says he is. And of course, too, with, the religious authorities are like, all right, we have to get rid of this guy. And so there's that turning point too, of course, and then getting ready for the entrance into Jerusalem. And in essence, Jesus kind of makes Mary, Martha's, and Lazarus's house kind of the home base, because even during the Holy Week leading up to his crucifixion, he'll go to Jerusalem, but he'll leave. And so he doesn't really, spend the night really in Jerusalem. Hangs out.
And they're in Bethany, correct?
Bethany. Yep. So, good start. Good start.
Right. Number 2, read Luke chapter 18:22 aloud. Would we like to read that before I get on?
Yeah.
Okay.
When Jesus heard this, he said to him, "One thing you still lack: sell all that you have and distribute to the poor, and you will have the treasure in heaven, and come follow me."
How does Jesus respond to the rich ruler? How is it different from the ways he responded to the Pharisees? What do you think it counts for the difference in his response? Well, I don't know what I was reading there. That doesn't make any sense. what I really think Jesus is kind of telling him, this is your, here's the last thing, sell your things. It kind of, he doesn't really say follow me, but, he's done, kind of how I was looking at it. He's done all the things right. He hasn't murdered. He's followed the 10 Commandments. He's done this. The last thing is just kind of being faithful that God will provide, but it's hard for him to give his things away. So I think versus the Pharisees, he's telling them, you're not doing the right things, or this is like, you've done all the right things. Here's your kind of final mission almost. So, and I think I guess that would be answer kind of the last question too, is that they're just in different spots, the Pharisees and the rich ruler. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with this one.
What'd you write down?
Well, I wrote down, of course, it will be easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, but I don't know what I was trying to say as far as the rich ruler. I think it's more difficult for the rich ruler than it is for the Pharisees, and I think Jesus knew how the Pharisees would respond, if that makes any sense.
Well, so a couple things. So some of the questions Jesus is asked were questions that were of popular conversation of the time, and we know that from the Talmud and other Jewish writings, that they were exploring some of these questions. What is the greatest commandment?
Yeah.
How are we saved? And, just wrestling with those things. And so, pertaining to the question at hand, I like Matthew's version because I think he fleshes out some parts Luke doesn't list. And so, in Matthew's rendition, the rich young ruler comes and Jesus says, you got to keep the laws, and of course Jesus then lists the laws basically from like 4 down. He doesn't mention the first 3. So that's, no graven images, worship me only, Sabbath. So basically, Jesus lists all the commandments relating to human relationships, but not to relationship with God. And so I think we see Jesus saying, you got to follow the commandments. God's like, oh, yeah, I have. Mm-hmm. But when Jesus, says then what's left is for you to get rid of all your things and then follow me. And the guy doesn't. And so basically Jesus is revealing to him is that actually you've broken the first commandment. You've actually made money your ultimate thing. And so in a sense Jesus says, you actually haven't kept all the 10 commandments. And that's a revealing of the heart, because are you willing to give up everything for God? And when God asks you to get rid of all your things, right there, and you say no, that just shows. But I think as far as the other part of her question, the differences with the how he responds. Well, I think the rich young ruler was genuinely asking. Mm-hmm. In a sense, maybe he was probably a little excited. Say, oh yeah, I've kept them. Mm-hmm. To where the Pharisees and the Sadducees would have been arrogant and just trying to trick Jesus or try to catch him in a wrong answer. Or I think for the rich young ruler it was more of a genuine question, or at least
wanted to.
not out of a negative place, since it was a common question at the time.
Yeah.
Well, does that impact the way you guys have think about her questions or the story of the rich young ruler?
She asked too many questions in different ways.
Yeah. It's like the same question sometimes,
There's
but
a
like
little
just
twist.
enough twists. I'm like, because like how I thought I answered both of them with that one saying. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make me think of it differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well,
all right,
Okay.
number 3.
Number 3.
number trace.
Read Matthew 19:10-12 aloud.
The disciples said to him, "If the relationship of the man with his wife is like this, it is better not to marry." But he said to them, "Not all men can accept this statement, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born that way from their mother's womb, and there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs by men, and there are also eunuchs who made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He who is able to accept this, let him accept it."
What are the three types of eunuchs Jesus described? Given the context, what do you think he means by the last type? Yeah, I'm with. You're going to have to take the lead on this one, Josh.
So, three different types of eunuchs. Those who, in a
By
sense,
birth, I mean, that's,
By
I did
birth.
write that, eunuch by birth, by men or man.
by being forced,
And then, and religious.
those who choose to
Yes.
do it. And so, in context, it's about marriage. And so, Jesus is not, he's using eunuchs as kind of in a hyperbolic way. So, he's not saying entirely that men are not just losing body parts. But he's pointing to something that's connected to marriage. So, with that being said, I think what of course your question means the last type. Basically, those who choose to be celibate and single for their rest of their lives. And so, in a sense, people can be called to singleness for a season or for a life. And that we've seen that in the early church, and some people do experience that today. Now, is there some type of, because we're in today, a type of in relation to sexuality and sexual expression? Could be, but also not. Or it could just be like, I just choose to be single. They could be, in a sense, heteronormative, as some would say. Just I just feel called to singleness, and I will pursue Christ and whatever He places before me, and that's that. There have been some those who have same-sex attraction who have felt that then their call is to singleness as being faithful to the gospel. But there are some who've experienced same-sex attraction who have found love in the opposite sex, and through 2 or 3 have written books about that experience, and so that's where I think what Jesus is talking about, because again it's relating to marriage. Because the response is like, oh, it just seems better not to marry. He goes, well, this is a very hard saying, and then it goes into this eunuch illustration, and of course the third one is those who are choose to stay single for the kingdom of heaven. Thoughts, feelings, reactions.
Because I had here, they were more speaking about divorce than just like obviously that's a part of marriage, but like the specific part, and that's what I was taking when they were talking about that first part of, would it be better just not to marry I was taking it as if you think divorce is ever on there. Because right before, they were talking about pretty much the only reason is for sexual immorality, is a reason. Was there two?
Jesus explicitly talks about adultery.
Yeah.
Paul goes and affirms adultery, and also tells the Christians, if your non-believing spouse leaves, let them go. If you can reconcile, that's awesome, Paul says later. But don't hold them captive, in the relationship. But here when Jesus is talking about the divorce, it's talking about how serious God takes the marriage relationship, because I didn't agree with her in the book. She said that Moses permitted only for adultery, which that's not the case, because you go in there, you look in Deuteronomy, in at least 2 places, it says for whatever reason, for whatever the man didn't like about the woman, didn't like the dress she wore, didn't like how she cooked, he could write a piece of paper and say, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
And that's where Jesus talks about the hardness of heart, and how important this relationship it is, but also how hard it can be, especially if you get selfish, make love transactional, make them feel like a thing rather than a person. And so that's where in a sense Jesus says, this is work, and married people say, marriage is work because you have to compromise and pursue the interest of the other person over yourself. And so in some cases it's, Jesus says, better not to marry. Life might be a little easier not to marry, especially depending on your calling, especially if you travel or have a difficult or dangerous job, or just whatever that might be.
So then you can twist that. Was he saying that so that because we can't follow, if you're married, was that kind of the whole context, is if you're married and you can't still put me first? Or do you see?
I can see what you're saying, because
I don't even understand why this is even an issue.
What do you mean?
Well, I guess for me, is he telling us that if we can't be married and follow him and put him first, then that's what we shouldn't be doing? Or is this just that we're choosing to be single to follow him? Or is it going back to the whole marriage thing, that if you can't do the hard work, then don't?
Mm-hmm. And I think this reaffirms. I think he's reaffirming the importance and the integrity the marriage relationship needs. Because too many people go in willy-nilly, not thinking that everything's gonna be sunshine and rainbows.
So then, is he also tying that marriage to him, basically?
Yeah, because also in a sense, in other parts, the marriage relationship is also a reflection of the Trinity.
Yeah.
As far as intimacy.
Because we kind of go into that a little bit later too, that we're his bride. So. Yeah. It's just. I thought the New Testament.
So
was
here's
going
some
to be
theology,
easy.
and so kids, close your ears. The sexual act is in a sense a reflection. It's a gift, but also a reflection of the union that we are to have with God. A closeness that a special relationship that only us and Him have. And of course, because the biggest part of a man and woman relationship, especially a marriage, it's that physical act. Mm-hmm.
Wowzers.
Sorry, folks, didn't mean to make this PG-13.
I know.
Happens every once in a while.
Yep.
All right, I say we're ready for number 4.
Number
'cause
4.
my hamster's getting.
The hamster about fell off.
Yeah, he's not worn out yet, but he's getting there.
Okay, let's see. So number 4 is
I think
me.
it's you.
In Matthew chapter 21, verse 43, Jesus is speaking to the scribes and Pharisees, both of whom are leaders among the Jewish religious community in Jerusalem. They hold high standards and often accuse Jesus of breaking their laws, yet Jesus accuses them of not producing the fruit of God's kingdom. What does the fruit of God's kingdom look like if not strict obedience?
I kind of just went with they were living for the betterment of all people. Kind of from what I remember from the Pharisees is that it got to be the point to where it was it was a political position. A lot of them were following directly what they were told from the Romans and not necessarily doing their jobs. They were more doing it to take that good have a comfortable life with that. So a lot of them were living selfishly and not selfless.
I wrote down a bunch of words: spirit grown, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control.
Well, and I would add, one of the things in one of these encounters, Jesus says, have you forgotten the higher, he says higher, parts of the law? Mercy, justice. And so while the Pharisees and Sadducees are trying to control everyone's life at the expense of the people sometimes, because he accuses them, hey, you're padding your own pocketbook, while you're ripping off widows and orphans.
Yeah.
It's like you've totally forgotten the main part, because even throughout the Old Testament, what does the Lord require of you? Seek justice, walk humbly before your God. And so, in a sense, strict obedience, yes, but to the right things first. Mercy, justice, love, the fruits of the Spirit. I mean, it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
And so, so I think, her question there kind of just, I think, twists. Then we see that, strict obedience to what?
Yeah.
So that would be my question, to what? Because again, Jesus says the higher parts of the law. Yes, these things, God give you these things, but God's biggest concern, and the thing He's wrapped on you for centuries, is taking care of widows and orphans, executing justice, and being faithful in your worship.
Yeah.
All right. Over to you, sir.
All right. How do you say Zach's name? Because I've been saying
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus. Okay. All right. Which story impacts you more? The rich ruler turning away from Jesus, or Zacchaeus turning to Jesus? Why? I put the rich ruler. He's followed all the rules we've talked about earlier, besides the most important ones. But wouldn't do the last thing to be able to live eternally. He took this short time in eternity to have an easy life versus the overall eternity. And it was kind of just...
So that affected you the most. Why?
Just because I kind of see that, in myself, mostly because I feel like I've done a good life, but I think it would be hard to, if he said, give everything away, instantly I think, I can't give everything away. I got 2 kids and a wife that I need to provide for. But then I also need to think, what if God set me up for something else? So I think that's what kind of just really impacted me the most with putting it to myself. Like, okay, would I, if I truly know that Jesus is in front of me telling me to do this, why wouldn't I do it? Be able to. So, yeah.
For me, it was Zacchaeus turning to Jesus, and I think my whole reason behind that is because he didn't have to. He wasn't going that direction, but Jesus won him over. So that one impacted me more.
I want to double check something before I speak. Okay. So one of the things, I think about is, of course, Jesus gives 3 parables in a row: the widow and the lost coin, the lost sheep. I think I screwed up that order. And then the prodigal son, the rich young ruler, and the Zacchaeus happen after those parables. And I think we see here Jesus is willing to draw specific attention, give attention to those who need to connect with him. So, about the rich young ruler asking questions, Jesus gives him his full attention. But what draws me, I think, more to Zacchaeus is that as Jesus is going through town, and I know I preached on this course, I think sometime last year, because it's still kind of fresh in my mind, is that the crowd there, so excited to see Jesus, is like, it's kind of late in the day. Jesus is going to stay here, and we're going to have a big banquet. We're going to hang out. Maybe he'll do some miracles. It's going to be awesome. But the scripture tells us Jesus he goes through town. Jesus, I thought you were going to stay. Mm-hmm. And not only does he go through town, but he stops at the opportunity to connect with Zacchaeus, the one who actually needed to connect with him. And Zacchaeus, of course, makes all this effort in the that puts his own life at risk, because I mean, he could have been stabbed in the crowd, or they could have, mobbed up against him. But Jesus stays very intentional and connecting with those that desperately need to connect with him, because he says to the Pharisees, I've come for the sick, I've come to save sinners, I've come for those who know that they need me. And of course, Zacchaeus is one who knows that he needs to see and connect with Jesus. So I try to think of it in today's terms. Think about, if Billy Graham strolled through Burlington, if he were still alive, and like, oh, Billy Graham's in Burlington. Billy Graham's in Burlington. But he walks straight through town. And he stops and talks to the one person most of the town doesn't like. It says, hey, let's hang out. Let's have dinner at your house. And if that's the example of Jesus, are we willing to tell the 99, no, not right now or later or whatever, and focus on the person in need? I think a lot of Christians would not like that if a pastor or Jesus said that to them. It's like, nope, I'm there for that person. You believe, great, but we gotta get the one that doesn't know yet, who's ostracized, who's disconnected.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's good. You're smiling.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking the other 99, or I would probably be going, well, okay, I'm good enough. Then I've missed the whole point again. But, I could see myself doing that. Like, well, yeah, go ahead and go, because I'm obviously all right. Then that's probably when he'd do about face and come back and, no, you're not Don Marie. But, yeah, anyway.
It happens. After last night and then now, it's like my hamster's worn out.
Yeah. A lot of deep discussions.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
You're good.
Read John 12:27-30 aloud. Has anybody got that
Yep.
pulled up?
Tyler's on it.
Now my soul is troubled, and shall I say, Father, save me from this hour? No, it was for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then the voice came from the heavens. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The crowd that was there heard it and said it had thundered. Others said it was an angel that had spoke to him. Jesus said, this was the voice for your benefit, not mine.
What words characterize Jesus' tone during this exchange? What does it reveal about Jesus that he shares this struggle openly? How can it serve as an encouragement and a model for you when you face trials?
Well, I'm going to read this again, because I realized I only really answered one question. It was kind of like, I realized what I was going to say now. It was kind of like Jesus was like, you don't believe me? Yeah, you think it's hard now, but this is the reason why I'm here. Like almost like some sarcasm in his voice. Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, I glorify you. And then Dad comes out from the clouds. And so it's like he was struggling with, the people believing him that, this is what he's going to do. But also I had kind of what here is, models when you face your trials. It's, kind of like what we've talked about throughout the Old Testament, is that we need to turn to him when we're struggling. Mm-hmm. So, he is the answer. So, yeah.
The tone, I'm not sure I really had. I've written down scared, unsure a little bit, maybe not as confident. And then I followed up with, it was a human tone to me, a human response. But what does it reveal about Jesus that he shares his struggle openly? That to me is that I can still be scared and nervous, but still glorify. And I feel like that's what he still did, even though I don't know that he was sure that this is what he wanted to happen, but he was questioning that. But how it can give me encouragement is just that the Lord does care for me, and he will be there when I'm weak.
Yeah, I connect that with the John 17 prayer, but here I think Jesus is asking a rhetorical question, because he's troubled in troubled in the sense could be frustrated, maybe a little angry, upset, maybe at the crowd, because it's just how he's poses the question in the follow up. My soul has become troubled. What shall I say? Father, save me from this. But for this purpose I've come to this house. So Father, glorify your name. And so I think, for in a sense, that Jesus is kind of putting out this rhetorical question, is like, do I think you think I'm gonna get scared and back down? Nope. This is why I'm here.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here. And Father, glorify him, and then the Father's like speaks, just like, and of course people hear it. And so there's something there that people get to hear the voice of God. I need to pause and just say that. To hear the voice of God. Some attribute to angels, call it thunder, but just for the sense of sky to open up and a voice to come out right after Jesus' Father, glorify your name. And so I think, it definitely serves an encouragement for Jesus, because, we do know by the time to the prayer in Gethsemane, it's like Jesus does pray, Father, if there's another way,
Do it.
that might be a little less than what's coming. But if your will be done, it's that, hey, but I'm in.
Yeah.
So I think definitely an encouragement. Because another thing we got to remember is that even though Jesus is still connected to the Father, when he is on earth, is the most separated he's ever been from the Father, so to speak. And so, to have such closeness and intimacy as God within yourself, to have a form of separation.
Yeah.
Again, they're still connected, but a form of separation from just like, I think especially when the foundation of your character and you are the essence of love, I think these words are definitely encouraging.
Good stuff.
Yep. My turn?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Number 7. Let's read Mark chapter 11, verses 23 to 24.
You got it? I got it right here, Tyler.
Okay.
If I can see it. Truly, I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours.
What other verses on prayer help us expand our understanding of these passages? What's the danger in taking these verses out of the context of Scripture and isolating them? What might motivate a person to do that, as opposed to seeking a fuller understanding of Scripture's teaching on prayer?
Again, too many questions.
Yeah.
I have a discussion on this one, because
Yeah.
I want to hear what y'all got to say.
Yeah, I skipped the first question because, I'll be honest, I didn't know. But what I think is dangerous about this is that if taken out of context, like you read just that, to me it sounds like
What did
all
we
you,
ask for?
yeah, it's a genie. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
God. And I'm a firm believer in sometimes unanswered prayers are your best prayers, because you don't know what you need at that time. So, and I think what motivates a person to do that is it's the easy answer. It's easy way to, make an atheist or agnostic, saying, well, I prayed that XYZ would happen and it didn't happen. I have my brain's going a little bit everywhere, but I don't think it's for this podcast. But I just really think it's more, if you don't read it, line by line, it causes a lot of people to think that it's, you're a genie, it's a, your magic wish, when sometimes it can be, but most of the time it is literally just wishing well. Like, it's not, am I going to win the lottery today? I really need it, but it might be, I got an extra $100 in the account to, pay that bill versus, what is it, the 1.2 billion or whatever it is. So, it's the little things.
You go.
Jesus talks about several things in prayer. I mean, there's the ask, seek, knock teaching that's earlier. And I think a good foundation that should help us to understand these other teachings in prayer is the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Praise. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And so Jesus, he's using the mountain imagery to be hyperbolic, but it's hyperbolic to demonstrate the power, the spiritual power that is present, that it can change, in a sense, I'll use this phrase, the fabric of reality. To pray that a mountain move, more than an inch. This is just the command to do something totally, not physically possible. Demonstrates the spiritual power that is available. God spoke everything into existence. But prayers should always be tempered and understand that power is always going to align with the will and desire of God. And so that's why, in Scripture we see healings and other miraculous signs, because that is within the alignment of the will of God. Never in any of the stories we see the apostles, in particularly, where they do what they want. The miracles that they do are signs of the love and of the love of God and the future that is to come in the resurrection. The healing of the lame beggar outside the temple, those who are cured of diseases, those demons cast out, those never in any time do disciples pray and say, "All right, mountain, let's show everybody what we've got." Yeah. Boom. And so it can be taken to prosperity gospel, name it and claim it type of belief, or people mistakenly, I believe, firmly believe that, you've got to believe hard enough and you'll get what you pray for. It's like nowhere in Scripture do we actually see evidence of that. And so we have to then understand that when we pray, it's not just to do things, but it's also the alignment of our own will, alignment of our own character with the the character of God. And if there are miraculous things that He wants us to do, we will have the ability to do it. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
I said it first.
Yeah, you got me.
All right. So I did 1, 4.
What number is it? Is it me?
Number 7. Yep. So yeah.
Oh man.
Do you want me to read it for you?
No, it's good.
Okay.
When Jesus
I offered.
When Jesus is asked about paying taxes to Caesar in the offensive Roman regime, he affirms it should be done. Yet we see him demonstrate the same humility while putting down his foot. Same humility while putting his foot down with Herod and Pilate elsewhere in the gospel. On the practical level, how does it look like to follow him in his footsteps and humbly honor God while keeping the law, while also rebelling against the wicked authorities? How do we strike that balance of humility in both submission and action? Are there any areas where you personally struggle to find the balance? Note, this is a place where you question your own actions and not always you think others miss the mark. And not ways you think others miss the mark. Tried to read that fast. It just wasn't
You're
going
good.
like they do on TV.
You did good. I have discussion on this one too.
I do too. So, all right. Go back to the first question. If it wasn't 12 pages long. On a practical level, what does it look like to follow in his footsteps humbly, honoring God, to keep the laws while also rebelling against wicked authorities? So,
I kind of see that as just that you're standing up for what is right,
yeah, it's kind of, we
but
talk.
being respectful.
It's like not, you don't need to be a bandit or an outlaw to stand up. It's almost, you'll still follow the rules
Yeah.
of your town.
It was in the 60s or 70s that a town rose up against its sheriff because of how corrupt he was.
Yeah.
And this is another example when you think about Martin Luther King and the
Yeah.
boycotts and the
Yeah.
marches.
Yeah.
And so, but she wants us to think about us.
How we've done it. Yeah.
I would say that it's not to that extreme, but I had a hard time standing up to bullying when I was a kid, but when it came to other people, I was more likely to say something. Even now, it's kind of to the point like, hey, just leave each other alone. It's not worth it. That where you don't have to do something, or you're still, you're not getting to a fight, but you're standing up for yourself and others, or for others, where you could just walk away. So that was a thought I had. But
I'll let you point at me. What have I done?
Well, you can tell of times when you stood up to wicked authorities. I remember once having a meeting with a owner of a company about some of the shady payroll things that one of his policies had done, and I didn't get any blowback, but I wouldn't say he was wicked, but just trying to save money was like that's not how to do it.
yeah,
I do wish when Jesus was asked about paying taxes that he said, no, it's not lawful to pay taxes. So we can
Yeah.
be faithful and rebellious at the same time.
yeah, we probably better.
'Cause I found out that they spent $118,000 to test whether or not somebody could snap their fingers with a metal glove like Thanos. Yes.
The government did.
The government spent $118,000 to test whether or not a Thanos could show up with a metal glove and snap his fingers. Guess what? You can't snap your fingers with a metal glove. $118,000. Rand Paul shared that on his list of wasteful spending rants a while back.
Yeah, we don't need to get me started on that,
Yeah.
because I see a lot of that. But
No.
taxes would be great.
That's
not
right.
to pay,
I want
but
my money back.
Yeah.
That's what the government's spending. I want my money back.
I wish we could pick where it went. That'd be nice.
Roads.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That'd be my biggest thing. Roads.
I wouldn't mind a intercontinental train system.
Autobahn.
I would like that too. But
Driving my Camaro at 200 miles an hour. That would be awesome.
I'll let you.
I'd get like 4 miles to the gallon, but still be awesome. So,
All right, number 9.
Oh.
It's our favorite question of the week because it's the only one that stays the same. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're
If you
good.
Need to say
You're
something
good.
else.
I was just gonna ramble on something else. So,
I don't even remember which one I picked now.
306.
Yep, that's right. Don keeps me straight. All right. Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. It may not be immediately evident, especially since you weren't alive back then, but you are in that story. Do you know what you are doing in it? Nothing. You are just lost, that's all. But Jesus is doing a lot in that story. He comes, he seeks, he saves. He is the active agent in your salvation. And thank God, because we never would have found out our way. We might not have known we were lost if he hadn't showed up. We desperately need his rescue because he is where the joy is. It's just pretty well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That is a good one. That's why I had that one picked as well. But I also chose 307. Just a minute. And it is, Jesus can bring the dead to life, boss the weather around, and make food materialize, yet he humbly submits to the Father. Jesus is God the Son, not just a powerful prophet or a good teacher of morality. He repeatedly claims to be God himself, and the Father affirms it. Jesus is God and still obeys God, demonstrating humble submission to a greater degree than even possible for us. He's where the joy is. I just love everything about this one. There were several this week that I had a hard time picking from, but each one of them just really spoke to me on how powerful he is and how powerful how powerful Jesus was, but how powerful our Father is. Just the whole shebang.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm one of his kids.
Yep.
I mean, that's what's pretty amazing. Just when you keep reading these, you just go, and he chose me.
It is nice. Thank goodness.
I picked number 302. Jesus loves his family, so why doesn't he go when they call him? He's waiting for Lazarus to die. He can't raise a person who isn't dead. He intentionally designs a situation where things get far worse in order for his power to be made known all the more. He's always pointing to the Father and his glory, just like he did in his prayer of thanks. And this miracle sets in motion the plan to crucify him. He knew this would be costly. Perhaps that's even part of what moved him to tears. The tomb and the stone and the grave clothes aren't too far off for him, and he knows it. He's about to put death to death, and this is a preview. From his intentional timing that somehow always seems too late, to his sweet personal interaction with the sisters, to his power over death and the grave, he is where the joy is. To me, it's just a wonderful reminder that even in the midst of tough situations, God's love is still present. Mm-hmm. And as tough situations might be a test of the genuineness of our faith, it's also God's way of saying, I'm going to do something greater than you wanted or expected in the first place. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I was at with that one. So
that was a good one too.
All right, guys, that wraps us up here for week 44 of the Bible Recap Podcast. Again, it's Tyler, it's Don, and I'm Josh. Let me share with you what we're going to be talking about next week in week 45. And we are almost done with the Gospels. We got week 45 and week 46. We end and get into Acts. But so week 45 in biblical order, we've got Matthew chapter 23 going all to Matthew 26. So Matthew 23 to 26. We got Mark 14. We've got Luke 20 to 22. And then John 13 to 17. All right. See you guys next week. Take care and God bless.
Bye.